Hello everyone, my name is Eugene and we're going to talk about subliminal therapy. Before we do that, what I would like for you guys, I know I have a very large aura, but I can include you in it if you come closer. I promise I won't bite unless you ask me very nicely, and even so I'll get to choose, right? So just come closer, it's fine, you're safe, promise. All right, so today we're going to talk about subliminal therapy. Like I said, it's a very, very dear subject for me. It's one of the best methods I've encountered in working with people. It is by far the easiest and simplest way to achieve results. And I was going to say very fast, but probably I'm not going to say that. It does happen fast. However, the purpose is not for it to happen fast, but actually to get the results, correct? So we don't really care that much of how many sessions you get, as long as you get, the result that the client is looking for. Do you agree with me on this? Okay. Now, before we start, I have to make something very, very clear, and that is, when I talk about subliminal therapy, it has nothing to do with subliminal messages. Nothing. Okay? So maybe this is a bit too loud, so I don't want to disturb the next guy next door. So what I'm saying is, the guy who came up with this method, his name is Edward Yeager, Edward K. Yeager. And he's a wonderful person, a wonderful human being. He's over 90 years old today, and he's still going to break your arm if you dare to do arm wrestling with him. He's that strong in his 90s. So he's traveling around the world teaching this stuff. He's an engineer turned psychologist in his 40s. He was an engineer until 40s, and he turned to psychology when he was like 45 or something like that. So subliminal therapy, why did he call it that? Because if you look in the dictionary, the term subliminal defines something that happens, a process that happens below the level of the conscious mind. All right? That's the definition of, what do you call it, of subliminal. Is this okay? Yeah, I don't want to disturb people around, so. All right, so he came up with this term of subliminal therapy. Now, subliminal therapy is one method that is making use of what I'm sure most of you here are familiar with, the term of parts. Have you heard about the parts, concept of parts? Who doesn't know about parts therapy? You don't know about parts therapy. Okay, so it's very simple. In parts therapy, when the client comes in and says, I have a problem, basically you assume that it's a part of him or his unconscious mind that has the problem or that creates the problem. So in parts therapy, the concept, the overarching concept is that we have different parts. When you say a part of me would like to have the cookie and a part of me would like to have the salad, because of course it's much more, and guess who wins? For me, it's the cookie, I'm telling you right now. So, I am fortunate enough, actually, I would say I'm blessed to be trained and to be a trainer for 3 different schools of parts therapy. So it's parts therapy with Roy Hunter. How many of you are familiar with that? Yeah, Roy Hunter, Charles Stebbets. So I'm a trainer with this method of parts therapy. I'm a trainer with subliminal therapy, which is another concept, another way of doing parts therapy, and also resource therapy by Gordon Emerson, who is an amazing human being. He lives down in Australia, and he's been the head of Ego State Therapy International for many years, and now he has his own school, which is called resource therapy. All of these 3 techniques deal with parts therapy, with the concept of parts. And of course you have ego state therapy, which is kind of like the established official parts method. So they all deal with parts, and of course there are many similarities between all these schools. And one of the things that sets subliminal therapy apart from all the other schools is that instead of dealing with the part which is causing the problem, what Dr. Yeager came up with the idea was that there is a central part. All right. So now you're going to witness my amazing drawing skills. What we do, we have this perfect circle. This is John. All right. That's John. He's got a big head. And so we have John. And John says, I have a problem. So we know when John says, I have a problem, we know that it's not the entirety of John, but it is a part, a slice, a piece of him, right? So in subliminal therapy, you have this psyche, you know, split, if you will, in different parts, just as you have in parts therapy and all the other methods. However, the one thing that is different with subliminal therapy is that there is a central part. All right? So when you deal with a person, you start from the assumption that there is a part or different parts, not maybe it's more than one, which are causing the problem or sustaining the problem or contributing to the problem, because maybe maybe little John got scared when he was 5 years old, right? He got scared by dogs, and so that's a part which was formed to respond to that situation. However, in his life, there maybe been other parts which started to contribute. They did not start the problem, but they are not contributing. They are aiding to the same problem. So they are kind of supporting, sustaining the problem. Make sense? So you can have a part which is starting the problem, and then you have other parts which are now working together with this part, but they are different parts. So when you do subliminal therapy, what you actually do, you go and talk to this guy. You don't search for the parts, you talk to this guy. And here's why this is so much easier than other methods. And mind you, I have to say this. I have had times when I've done parts therapy and it didn't work. It just, the client didn't click on to the method, okay? So it was not the right method for that person. Then I switched to this, which was the same thing, 95% the same thing, but this worked. And vice versa, right? It can happen the other way around. So what do you do basically? Think of this as, and this is how I explain it to the client. Think of yourself as a company, right? Or like a team, right? So you'd say, how many of you here watch football? Right. What's your favorite team?
Panathinaikos.
What's that?
It's a Greek team.
Which one?
Panathinaikos.
Ah, Panathinaikos, okay. So, Panathinaikos Athena, okay? That's his team, of course, because he's Greek. Shit happens, you know. All right. So, think of the team. Now, the team has at least 11 members, right, which are playing the ball, and at any given time, there's only one part which is active, all right? At any given time, there's only one part that plays the ball. Now, when the person gets, say, spooked, let's take this example that a child or a person, a human being, an adult, has a phobia of dogs, right? Now, every time he experiences that phobia, there's one part which is active at that moment, only one part. All right? It can be aided by others, but there's one part which is like taking the stage. Now, this is me acting. You know, this is me who's having the phobia. So, what you do, that's why I give this example with the team, because basically you have a team and then you have the head coach, right? The one who's running the show, the one who's telling the team how to play. Or if you take the same example and think about a company, then you have the company with many departments, many managers, distribution, IT, accounting, and so on and so forth, and you have a CEO of the company. All right? Make sense? So instead of you looking for which department has the problem, you kind of like call the CEO and says, I need you to find the department that has the problem, because you know this company better than anyone else. So you go ahead and find the department, you find the manager that is causing the problem, and when you're done, you report back to me. So that way, all I'm doing, I'm just following some very simple steps, and I'm waiting for the centrum, that's what it's called, the subconscious mind, if you will, to give me the information. Once I have that information, I move on to the next step. Now, I mentioned that Dr. Yeager, he has, his formal training was an engineer. He was a very good engineer. So this whole process is very engineering-like. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. You just have to go through the hoops. You've gone through all the hoops, you've solved the problem. You get stumble in one spot, you just go back and fix it. And then you move on until go to the next step, until you finish the process. And it's very, very simple. It's a very simple process that anyone can learn. And actually, we have here the steps. I'll give it to you in the end of the session today. But it's a very simple process. And what's very beautiful about this technique, it's very simple for the client as well. It's very simple for the client to understand what you ask of him or her. And it's very simple, very easy for them to then follow the steps as you go through the process. All right? So think about it this way. If I were to kind of make a drawing, so this is you, right, the therapist. This is John, all right? Actually, you know what? Let's make John more like green, all right? John is green-blue now, all right? So this is you, this is John, and this is centrum, okay? This is John's centrum. So whenever you deal with whatever problem the client is aware of, because remember, when somebody comes to you and says, I have a problem, basically what are they saying? I am aware that I have a problem. I am aware, or if you were to think in parts, I am aware that there is a part of me who's causing problem to me. Make sense? So what you actually do, you ask the client to be nothing but a witness to the whole process. So before I start any session, I always tell the client, here's what I want you to do. And pay very very close attention to what I'm saying now. Here's what I want you to do. Absolutely nothing. I want you to be, if I take you by the hand now, and I have an office, 7th floor, and overlooking a crossroads. So I said to him, if I take you by the hand and go to the window and look at the crossroads, here's what I want you to tell me. What shows up at the crossroad? You know, what cars are there, what the colors, not what you think should be there, not what you would like to be there, but really only report to me what you observe, nothing else. And I cannot tell you how many times that's a very difficult task to do. Because people want to interfere in the process because they think they help. And I sometimes have to slap them and say, no, I want you to tell me what shows up. Not what you think should show up. Not what you'd prefer, what you'd like, but only what comes up. Is that clear? And they say yes, and like I said many times, they do no. Right? So, in subliminal therapy, it's very, very simple. The client comes in and says, I have a problem. And say, okay, I'm gonna need you to be the middleman between me and your centrum. All right? So the client, the conscious mind of the client becomes the middleman between me or you, the therapist, and their centrum. Why, and here's the reason why they call this centrum. Because Dr. Yeager, he kind of, figured out, well, if you call it centrum, some people call it their higher self. Their Atman, because they're into Hinduism or stuff. Some people call it their inner manifestation of God, what have you, it doesn't matter. So people like to put their own personal spin on it and make it, religious or not, God-believing or not. But if you call it centrum, that's very easy. Anyone can relate to that. And the way you present it to the client is very simple. Do you accept this idea that there is always like we have this higher intelligence within ourselves, like, I should have known better? Do you accept that idea? And the client will always say, yeah, I do accept that idea. It's like there's an internal part of me that always knows best. Do you accept that idea? And the clients will say, yeah. I don't say God, I don't say spirit, I don't say holy, I don't say anything. I just say there is a smarter part of you who sometimes gets to speak and sometimes doesn't. Do you accept that idea? Yeah. So it's that part that we want to communicate with now. Is that okay with you? They will always say, yeah, that's okay with me. Yeah. I don't mention God or anything. It's just very simple, logical stuff. So what happens is when you do therapy, it's like you talk to this part. Actually, you talk to this part through this part. This is a proxy, relaying information to centrum, and when you ask questions, relaying information from centrum to you. So what happens is like, for instance, I will talk to you, all right? But I'm not talking to you directly. I'm talking to you through her. So I'm asking you, I'm telling you, tell her that. And you say, okay, it said it. And now I tell you, tell me what she said. Because I cannot talk to her directly, but I can have you tell me what she said. Make sense? So that way, I start to have a dialogue. And even at that point, once I've established communication, the next step is to ask this part to go and search and find the parts which are causing the problem for the client. So I'm saying, Centrum, now here's what I want you to do. First question, are you aware of the problem that the client is concerned about? That's the first question. Are you aware of the problem? And sometimes Centrum says no. If Centrum says no, then I ask the client, state the problem. And he'll say, well, that's my problem. Then again, I check. Centrum, are you now aware of the problem? Yes? Okay, good. So Centrum, I want you to go ahead and find that part or parts, those parts, which are causing this problem for the client. When you're done, let me know. And then you wait.
Can I just check on the hypnosis you're asking?
No, I'm getting to that point. So the client, and Centrum says, I'm done. How does the Centrum says I'm done? Through this guy. Right? Because I don't have direct communication with him. I go through here. So he says, I'm done. Okay, perfect. So now that you found those parts, tell me how many are there? And it says 1, 3, 5. It doesn't matter how many, right? You get the number, and then next step is, okay, now let's start communicating with that part. And basically, here's the beauty of this whole thing. We start with the premise that whatever the reason for which that part is acting the way it does, whatever the reason for which that part is causing the problem for the client, that reason is 99% of the time having to do with the past. Okay? So what does this mean? It means that at some point in this client's life, something happened, and that part reacted in response to that situation, and it reacted in a way to protect the client, right? The main job of the subconscious mind being to protect the client, correct? That's another premise we're working with. So now we know that, back 50 years ago, 2 years ago, 20, it doesn't matter how long ago, something happened and that part reacted in order to protect the client. And he's done a great job. Okay? So now our job is to update that part. Because here's what happens. Whatever the client is complaining about, that is a manifestation, if you will. I can call it a behavior of some sorts, right? So whatever they're complaining about is a result of something. And the key point here to take away is that we always take, at a subconscious level, we always take permanent decisions on temporary situations. Okay? So once we've had a belief installed, that will act as a status quo from then on. So once the guy believed that a dog will bite him and scare him off, he stays with that idea and he now has a phobia of dogs. And that will stay with him forever. So once that belief is accepted, it's part of the law, so to speak, right? So we take permanent decisions. And when I say decision, because decision we associate with the conscious mind. But let's say when we have permanent reactions to temporary situations. I think that would be a better way of putting it, right? So what we have to do? We have to instruct the part that whatever the reason happened, whatever the reason was at that point, that reason is no longer valid. Today, John is 50 years old. That happened when he was 5 years old. He doesn't want that anymore. All right? So basically, we communicate to this part through John, through Centrum, and then we go and talk to this part. And we tell Centrum, tell this part that whatever the reason was there, that reason is no longer valid, and John now wants to be free of that symptom, of that situation. When you finish, let me know. So the first part is bring an understanding to the part, explain what is happening, and what I always like to throw into the mix is thank the part. And I always start with thank the part, because that part has done a great deal of work to help protect the client. And remember this, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. All right? And it's always so true for these kind of situations. The road to hell is paved with good intentions because this part had a good intention in protecting the client. How is the part protecting the client? Causing a phobia of dogs, even though there is no more need for that. All right? So you start by thanking the part. Thank you for the intention. And this is very important. You thank the part for the intention, not for the way it's been manifesting the intention, but for the intention. Because, you know, somebody was talking about the other day, I don't know how many of you were last night in the panel, and Gary was talking about Hitler. How many were there last night, right? So Hitler had very positive intentions for his own sake, in his own mind. So he had positive intentions. However, the outcome was, we know what it was, right? So the part or parts always have a positive intention. However, the outcome is not as desired. So when you thank the part, you don't thank the part for what it's done. You thank the part for the intention that was behind its action. Make sense? And by thanking the part, what you actually do, you open communication. Because if you don't do that, most of the times you'll find that the part is very reactive and very self-protecting. But by thanking it, it's like, oh, he's a nice guy, I can talk to this person. And then it'll be open to negotiation, because that's what you actually do. You negotiate. You explain to this part that whatever the situation was back then is no longer real, is no longer present. So therefore, this part does not have to behave as if that event is still present. And if that event is not present, then what's the purpose of you acting the way you do? There's no more purpose. So basically, you bring information, you bring news to this part. And once the part understands, the next step you can do is either reintegrate the part, and that's, sometimes I give clients an option, sometimes I don't give them an option, I just say, you know, get rid of this part. Sometimes I ask them, I ask the client, what do you want to happen with this part? Most of the times what I do, I ask Centrum what he wants to do with the part. So option 1 is reintegrate. Option 2, thank the part and sayonara. You know, thank you very much for your service. You're dismissed, and that's it. Job done. Finished. Make sense?
What do you mean by reintegrate?
Well, this part has been created in response to an event. That event happened when John was 5 years old. Now he's 55. So therefore, if the event is no longer active, the action of the part is no longer needed. So now, let's say you've taken a job because at the time when you've taken the job was necessary. It's not necessary any longer, so you don't need the job anymore. So you either get a new job, right? So reassignment, or you get back into the whole of John. Or, you know, you get a point, yeah? Make sense? So that's what I mean by reintegration. It's kind of like, thank you so much for your service, you know, go back into the whole, so to speak. The whole doesn't mean like a hole in the ground. It means like the entirety, yeah, the wholesomeness of the person, so to speak. That's what I mean by whole. So you finished with this part, then you move on to the next. Then you move on to the next until you finish all of the parts. And when you're finished, you're basically done. That person should not have the problem anymore. However, sometimes it can linger. And if that's the case, you can just tell the client, if the issue is still there, it means that there are still some parts we have not worked with yet. And we just go back and deal with those in the next session. This is, in a nutshell, what this does. It's a very, very simple process, very fast. How many of you are familiar with the swan? Right. So we recently had Bob Burns in Romania. He's been teaching the swan, and this blends in perfectly with the swan. I've had clients whom they couldn't swan, the hand didn't move, and I asked the part, let's do something else. Let's have communication a different way. And then I switched to this. And it just flew beautifully. Any questions so far? Yes, please.
Feedback. So when you first say to a client, our Centrum this question, that question, let me know when you're done. You're not using IMRs at that point, you're just waiting for them to do some internal.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. I'll get to the how-to. Right? Basically, what the purpose of this presentation is for you to learn the technique. You have the steps, and you can go ahead and do it. It's that simple. However, we do have, I'll take it in a second, yeah? However, we do have like a 3-day certification with a method where you go through a lot of how-tos, what happens if it doesn't work, what happens if you do this and that, and so on. So in a 3 days workshop, we do a lot of practice, a lot of demonstrations, and a lot of answering questions which, like how do you do this by yourself? How do you do this for this problem or for that problem? So that's a 3-day certification course. For those, I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, just so you know, okay? But we do have a recording of a workshop I've been teaching this year in New York, which you can buy, and you have the whole process there for 3 days. All right, wow, that's fast. 10 minutes and done? Yeah. Okay, all right, good. So let me get to how to. Right, because that's the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. So, why don't I bring somebody up here and demonstrate, and that's the easier part. So, who wants to be a guinea pig, come up here and I'll do you. All right, you come up. Sure, there you go.
Are you saying that this is not done in hypnosis?
Yes, I'm saying that.
Have you done it in hypnosis?
I've done it in hypnosis.
Is it not better in hypnosis?
No, it's not. You don't have to. You don't have to. And so I'm just going to show you how I do it. It's very simple. Right, right. So, all right, okay. So I'll speak slower now because we got plenty of. All right, so Laila, Eugenia. They spelled my name wrong, just so you know. It's Eugene, but they said Eugenia here. All right.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. All right. So, is there? Let me ask you this way: is there something you'd like to work on? Something that bothers you? Something that, you don't have to tell me what it is, but as long as you know what it is, and if there is nothing, it's fine. You can go back. I'll pick somebody else. Is there anyone here who's having an issue that you would like to get closure with? You'd like to fix? Everybody's perfect. Oh, okay, well, thank you. All right, come on. It's not going to hurt, I promise you. You'll remember everything. I have the video. All right. So you have an issue that you want to deal with. You'd like to, fix it. Okay, good. Now, one of the things which I love most about this technique is, one, I don't need to do hypnosis, and you'll have clients who come to you and say, don't hypnotize me. I have a problem, but don't hypnotize me. This is perfect for that. All right, you don't need to do hypnosis. It's just casual conversation. Second, which I think probably for me it's maybe the best feature of this technique, is the fact that it's content free. I don't need to know what his issue is. In fact, I don't want to know what his issue is, right? And that's very good for the client. Why? Because there are so many. It's like for every client that comes to therapy, there are 20 who don't because they're scared, afraid, ashamed, guilty to talk about their issue. For every one client, I just came up with number 20, but I think it's more than that. There's so many people who have issues and they don't want to talk about it because they, of all the reasons I gave you. And on top of that, think of a situation where somebody comes up with a horrific situation and you don't want to take that home with you. So you can deal with that without knowing the details. So that's great for you, it's great for the client, everybody wins, everybody's happy. All right? So you know what that is. And you want to put a name on it, like label it, you can call it whatever you want it. You can call it the thing, the boo-boo, the woo-woo, whatever you want to call it, or the problem, whatever you want to call it, the issue. The issue, okay, good. So here's what I want you to do. You can do this eyes open or eyes closed, whatever you prefer. Personally, I find that with people when I do this, for most people it's easier to visualize with their eyes closed, but it's your choice, all right? So here's what I like to do. You understand the concept. I'm not going to go over it. Okay, good. So here's what I'm going to do. I would like to open this line of communication with your centrum, all right? That higher intelligence. So what I would like for you to do now is to imagine or visualize a surface you can write on. When you have it, let me know. Okay. what is that? What is that surface? A board like this. Okay, good. So what is your name again?
Serge.
Serge. Okay, Serge. So close your eyes. So Serge, what I want you to do now, I want you to go ahead and write the word yes on the board. This is the how-to. So write the word yes on the board. When you've written, let me know.
Okay.
You got it? Now I want you to go ahead and erase it. Good. Now I want you to just look at the board. Nothing else. Just look and observe. And what I would like to do now is to talk that central part of you. That part of you that knows everything about you. That part of you that's been there before all the other parts. And we call that part Centrum, just to make it easy to communicate. So I'm talking to Centrum right now, and I'm asking Centrum to write the word yes on the board now, and you Serge, let me know when it's coming up.
Okay.
All right, now the word yes is on the board, correct?
Yes.
Did you write it, or it just showed up?
It showed up.
All right, good. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to try and see if you can erase it.
Gone.
All right. Was it as easy as before?
Slower.
Slower. Okay, good. Now again, just look at the board, and again, I'm talking to Centrum now. Let's do this so I can anchor physically. Usually, when I work with people, I anchor them. Like when I talk to Serge, I'm gonna touch you here. When I talk to Centrum, I touch you here. Just so sometimes it's making it easier, right? So Serge, again, just look at the board. I'm talking to Centrum now. Centrum, again, I want you to write the word yes on the board, but this time make it so that Serge cannot erase it. And you let me know when it's up.
Yes.
All right. Now, Serge, again, did you write it or it just showed up?
It showed up.
All right. Try again and see if you can erase it. Okay, and let it be, let it be, that's perfect. Centrum, thank you so much. Now, Centrum, I'm asking you to raise the word yes from the board, and you let me know when it's gone. Gone, okay, good. Now, Centrum, now we establish communication with Centrum, all right? How do we do that? Through the board. It can be a board, it can be a notepad, it can be the computer screen, it can be anything, a sheet of paper. Some people said to me, it's a window. Fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever floats their boat, that's perfect for me. So, Centrum, what I want you to do now is write on the board the word yes or no. Are you aware of the issue that Serge wants to solve, yes or no? And you let me know what shows up, yes or no.
Yes.
All right, perfect. And Centrum, are you willing to help Serge with this issue, yes or no? You tell me what shows up, Serge, yes or no. All right, good. Now, Centrum, here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to search for that part or parts which are opposing the process. Once you found them, write the word yes on the board. You let me know when it shows up. All right, good. Now, Centrum, how many parts did you find? Write the number on the board. You tell me what shows up.
3.
3, okay, perfect. Now, Centrum, are you willing to work with them and solve and help Serge with this issue, yes or no? And you tell me what shows up.
Yes.
All right, good. So you just stay there, Serge. I'm going to talk to the class a little bit. So I asked Centrum if he's willing to deal with the issue, and he said no. Now, I have 2 ways to go here. Either I ask Centrum if it's willing to make it better, not necessarily completely solve it, but make it a bit better, or I presume there will be a different part which stepped in front of Centrum and says, no, I block the process. So I went with just my gut feeling, okay? I went with the second option. I said, Centrum, let me know the part which is opposing the process. And it showed there are 3 parts. All right, so we're back on track, right? Because if he would said, no, it's me, then I knew it wasn't a different part, 3 other different parts, but it was still Centrum. Make sense? No? Okay, I'll get back to it in a minute. So Centrum, here's what I want you to do. I want you to connect to the first of these 3 parts, and when you've connected to them, to that part, let me know by writing the word yes on the board. And you let me know when it's up there, Serge. All right, good. Now, Centrum, here's what I want you to do. I would like for you to communicate with this part. When I say communicate, I really mean allow this part to express itself, to manifest itself, to say everything it needs to say, to do everything it needs to do, to kind of like let go, free itself. And when it's done, let me know. And you write the word yes on the board. You Serge, tell me when the word yes is up on the board. And just wait. It's a step-by-step process, very simple. All right. So, Serge, I'm going to ask you, did the word yes show up on the board, or you kind of wanted it to show up?
So it's hard to tell the difference.
All right. All right. Good. So let me ask you a different way. Did you write the word yes, or it just showed up?
I waited for it to show up for you.
And it did show up?
Yeah.
By itself, right? That's what I'm asking for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. That's all we need to know. So sometimes I have to go in and check, because sometimes the client is so wanting to solve it, they're going to step into the process, and I have to check, hey, I don't want your opinion. I don't want your wanting or needing. I want you to just report back to me what Centrum says. All right, so Centrum, here's what I want you to do. I want you to communicate to that part, one part, and explain to this part, and now we're going to the educating process, and explain to that part that whatever the reason or reasons that that part might have, those reasons have to do with the past. And Serge today wants something else in his life. So I want you to explain that to the part and thank the part for all the intentions that it had in Serge's life. Thank for its intention, give it a present, a gift from you. So thank the part, give it a present, and then explain what Serge wants. Explain that whatever the reason that part had to create or to contribute to the problem that Serge doesn't want to have anymore in his life, that reason has to do with the past, whereas today Serge wants something else in his life. Centrum, is it clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. So go ahead and explain that to the part, thank it, and explain it. When you're done, write the word yes. You let me know when the word yes is up on the board. And you take your time. We're not rushing anything here.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. So Centrum, let me ask you, did that part understand what you ask of it, yes or no? Tell me what shows up, yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Now Centrum, the services, let's put it that way, the services of this part, are they still needed in Serge's life, yes or no?
No.
All right. Now, Centrum, here's an option for you. You can either reintegrate that part, and again, thank it for whatever the intention it had in Serge's life. You can either reintegrate that part, or together with the part, work with it and find it a new job in Serge's life, which is positive, beneficial, helpful, harmonious for Serge. Option 1, reintegrate. Option 2, change the job. Tell me what shows up on the board, Serge. 1 or 2?
Integrate.
All right, beautiful. So, Centrum, go ahead and do that now. When you're done, and let me know, write the word yes on the board. And you, Serge, let me know when the word yes is up.
Yes.
All right, beautiful. Thank you so much, Centrum. Is it okay if we continue this after the class is finished, so I can work directly with Serge and finish the work here? Is that okay with you, Centrum?
Yes.
All right. So, Centrum, first of all, before we stop now, I would like to thank you for all of the work you've done with Serge now and until now, and you'll continue to do from now on. And thank you for being able to express yourself up here. And Serge, when you think or when you feel that you're ready, you can also thank Centrum, and then you can come out of this state. All right, beautiful. Thank you. How did it go for you?
Nice, relax.
Yeah, relax. Yeah, and the answers were easy coming, difficult sometimes, easier at times.
Not always easy. Sometimes you just have to wait for it to show up.
Yeah, all right. God, it takes time to do work, huh? All right, all right. Thank you so much, Serge. I will continue with you after we finish, yeah?
Thank you.
All right. So, very simple steps. Very simple steps is like, and when you work with Centrum, you don't get you don't get prose. You don't get like a novel. So, as an answer, it's very short answers, yes or no. So, whatever you do to make the process easy and fast, you ask closed questions with yes or no. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, or numbers, like how many parts. And you go through one, he had 3 there, right? So you go through one. You finish with this one, you go to the next, you go to the next, you go to the next, until there are no more. And when there are no more, what I normally do is, Centrum, I want you to do now another scan and see if there are any other parts which are still connected to this issue, but they did not show up in the first scan. And do that scan now. And sometimes I had to do this like 3 or 4 times. So the first scan was like 5, then there were 4, and then there were 3, and then there were 2. But it was again and again, step by step, step by step. So you deal with all of them until you're done. You finished, and then an addition which I brought to the process through all the stuff I've done, I said, okay, now at the point where Centrum says there are no more parts which were creating or generating this issue, then what I do, kind of like up the game a little bit, I say, Centrum, now go and search for other parts which might in the future do this, because other parts have seen what these parts are doing and kind of get inspired. So I'm kind of like future pacing and preventing that any other parts would do that in the future, the same behavior. And then sometimes there's, oh, I found 2 more, I found another one. Okay, deal with those, and then when you're done, let me know. And that's it, process done. Sometimes it can take 15 minutes, sometimes it can take 5 sessions for one issue. But, you know, you're asking if you do hypnosis. What I really think you're asking if you do an induction. And you don't have to do an induction. As soon as the person is bringing up this communication, he is in a trance. He cannot not be in a trance. Make sense? So the process is just boom, 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 one step after another, one step after another, and it just flows from there. You have here a piece of paper with the steps, so you can take with you and practice. And if you're interested in more information, you can talk to me after we finish the presentation. But right now, we have like 6.5 minutes for question and answers. Questions and my answers, yes.
One of your questions was, are the services still needed? So if you've got something, a traumatic incident that triggered these parts and the maladaptive behaviour, and the secondary stuff is all not necessary, but that initial trauma might happen again. So I'm talking about somebody, say, with a health issue that was real, that caused a frightening situation, like not being able to breathe.
Yeah.
That may happen again in the future, but they've now got some big health anxiety around it.
Okay.
So genuinely it might happen again. How do you persuade that part to... Okay,
all right. So let me repeat the question to see if I understood it. So something happened, a part has been created which is kind of causing a problem, a respiratory problem in this case for the client, and that situation might happen again in the future. All right, good. So remember, it's not what happened, it's how we interpret what happened that we're dealing with. So the event in itself, the fact, doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is our interpretation of the fact. All right? So it is the interpretation of the event which is causing the problem for the client, not the event in itself. Right? So basically, you know, the formula we came up with is very simple. So you have event plus interpretation equals behavior. We don't change this. We cannot change this. We cannot change the event. What we can change is this. If I change this, I'll have a different outcome. Even if that event will happen again, I'll have a different interpretation and therefore a different behavior resulting from that situation. Yeah? Yes, please.
So would you tell Centrum that if that was to happen again, like the lady said, then you would give them, ask them to interpret that in a different manner? It's more positive, it's more...
That's why when I said you either reintegrate or change the job of this part to be positive, healthy, harmonious, beneficial for the client. Right? So that part may continue to exist, but it will not create the problem that the client came in with. So remember, parts are created in response to situations. Exclusively. You don't have a part if you have not been confronted with a situation that would require a part to be formed. This is the basics also for split personality, for multiple personalities. But in that situation, when you have a person suffering from multiple personalities, this part is completely ripped apart from the rest. So when this is manifested, the rest doesn't have any clue. You just pass out. So it's like a different person altogether. That's the difference between multiple personalities and parts concept. That's the basics. Yes, please.
What's the purpose behind asking Centrum how many parts there are?
Because
How many parts of the problem in that, if you deal with all those parts, and then ultimately you get to check in and they go, no, hey, I've still got something going on. We then go and say, do another scan.
yeah.
So, in my head, I'm curious about, it seems kind of redundant because you could just do one part, check in, and then do the next part if it shows itself, and keep doing that until it's gone.
All right. So if you were to say that in one sentence to me, what would I say?
I think it was to get clarity around the purpose of doing the scan and saying how many parts are there.
Maybe I do something similar. So I might say, okay, subconscious mind to the centrum. Check, is there any part with a problem? Yes. Can we look at it? Now check in, is there any other part with a problem?
Yes.
So he's saying, if you do that, you find out if there's more parts or not, just by...
Okay, so you say you can ask, like, is there a part that's causing the problem? Yes. And then I ask again, is there a part that's causing is also causing the problem? Contributing to it? Yes. The issue with that, it's not really an issue. You can do it that way, absolutely, but it takes longer. Because here's why. Let's suppose this lot here is causing this issue. So I go, Centrum, is this part causing the issue? Yes. Is this part causing the issue? Yes. Is it? And I just keep on going. Whereas I can say, Centrum, tell me how many parts are causing the issue. It's going to say 15.
I do the slight other way. So I might say, 3 people here are causing an issue.
Yeah.
For everyone else, okay. Subconscious mind, please open up line of communication with the part holding the issue. Okay, can we negotiate?
Yeah.
Is that issue solved, that part? Scan again. Is there anyone else causing an issue?
All right. But I already had the answer saying that there are 5 causing the issue.
So you know when to stop.
Yeah. So basically ask Centrum, how many is... So my question is this, Centrum, go and scan and find out if it is 1 or more parts causing the issue. Centrum might say there is 1. Sometimes I had somebody say 39. I didn't go through 39, okay? It's like, dude, come on, get a grip. But he said 1. Okay, so I deal with that one. If he says 5, I finish those, and then I just check just to make sure. But if I go one by one, it's going to take much longer, and it's the same process. I'm not saying you cannot do it that way, but for me, this works much faster, and it gives results. That's basically it. And sometimes when you ask Centrum to reintegrate or to change the job of the person, sometimes the client might have some ab reactions, and when they open that, it's like I had client looking at me, it's like, what the fuck was that? It's like, I have no idea. I don't care. Do you still have the issue? No. Well, thank you very much. That's it. And they don't know why they have the reactions, but they somatize. You know, it's like the body has to let go of something. And that's fine. Yes, please. Last question, because we have to wrap. I'm going to be open up there for questions afterwards anyway.
I think I'm doing it in the same way as you, but without calling it Centrum. I just say to the client, can you invite the part of you that's responsible for overeating to come to the table, and then we clear that issue. And then I said, can you invite the part of you that's responsible for not wanting to exercise? And then we just go through.
That's parts therapy.
Oh, okay.
That's parts therapy.
But it's still going through the client without calling it.
What you're doing, you're talking to each part separate, so to speak, whereas in this process, I'm talking to this guy, and listen to this. When you start the session, how do you prep it? You just say, there is a higher intelligence. Basically, what I said, by talking to this, you will solve the problem. Whereas if I talk, invite the parts, I might have one who says, fuck off. But if I talk to this one, it won't be able to say this because this is all-powerful, all-knowing, the oldest, the best, the wisest, the XY, whatever you're going to throw into the mix. That's what this part does. And if that's the case and the client accepts that idea, it will be impossible not to get the result.
So it has control. It has some control.
Yeah, but remember, it's like in the Bible, ask and you shall be given. If you don't ask, it won't give you a shit. So you have to ask it. It's there, looking, but not interfering. You want to solve the problem, you have to ask. And this method does this. So that's why I like it so much, because it's so fast, so simple, and everybody understands it. And you don't have to get very technical, you don't have to get it's just there. So, like I said, you can come up here, you have these papers, we have the steps. It's very simple stuff. If you want, leave us your email address, a card, or we just write it on a piece of paper. And for those of you who want to take this further, we have a DVD, which is, again, a recording of 3 days training with subliminal therapy. By guiding the DVD, you also can get an international certification with the technique, with the Subliminal Therapy Institute in the US. The price is $250, but for the people in this convention, it's $150. That's dollars, by the way. So let us know. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be out here. So if you have any other questions, I'll be very happy to answer your questions. But I think we have to close now, yeah? All right. So that's it. Thank you for now. Talk to you soon.